it doesn't matter. It's not working.
Yeah. For some reason, it doesn't work.
But I do know one thing that always works, and that's the cold open intro to the show. Hey guys, welcome back to another bonus episode of Runeterrable Radio. I am your host, Blevins, and joining me as always is Saucy Mailman. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, dude?
It's going great. Would you believe that I was still dancing even though my camera's not?
I just assume you're always dancing at all times, anytime we talk.
That is true, but we need not delay because we have ourselves. Well, hey, this is our first bonus episode that's ever happened. I mean, it's still going to count as a regular episode in terms of number, but it is a bonus episode in terms of this is our second one this week. And the reason that we're doing this is because we have nailed down and gotten in one of the hottest content creators in the Legends of Runeterra scene right now, card game streamer, content creator, and lover of Heimerdinger, the person who inspired me to build the Heimerdinger Ezreal deck. We have none other than Mega Mogwai. Welcome.
Hello. I love that 80s. That intro is so 80s, by the way.
Oh yes, and shout outs to Delver Music for making that intro for us. It is fantastic. I love it. Sometimes I just like go on my computer and I press the button. I just listen to it on repeat just to hear it.
So yeah, thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure, and I love talking Runeterra stuff. So I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, I mean, you're in the right place to talk Runeterra, the Runeterra podcast.
We do it here, yeah.
We sure do. And I guess let's just start it off. And Mogwai, I know you from a couple other games. I know you were big into Artifact and MTG as well. So I'm just kind of curious. I mean, we have a lot of different people from all sorts of different games and gaming backgrounds in Runeterra. So what has really spoke to you in terms of Runeterra, and what brought you over?
At first, I was just curious. I remember, I was a part of the first and second closed beta preview stages.
Mm-hmm.
These events that lasted for a few days, and I honestly really liked the game. I became really interested in it, but initially it didn't really hit me that hard. I enjoyed it, I had fun, but then I just kind of after that event was over, I just went to Magic and kept doing my thing. What happened with the release of the open beta was initially very similar. I was just gonna, I mentioned in my YouTube that I was gonna upload content on it. I was really looking forward to it, but I had no long-term plans or anything by any means. I just kind of wanted to try it out. And what happened was I'm a card game fanatic, first of all, right?
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy many different card games. But what happened with Runeterra for me was I found myself in a situation in which I would just play more and more every day. And I just normally I have this phase, right? When I'm trying out a new card game, and it lasts for about a week, in which I just go really hard in on it, and then it just, kind of the honeymoon phase is a bit over.
Yep.
And you're kind of sick of it at that point. But with Runeterra, the opposite was happening for me. I just could not stop playing, and I had never really been as consistent as I am being now with my streams. Because with Magic the Gathering, the problem is I tend to really I get oversaturated with it at a certain point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can't keep a realistic, constant streaming schedule with it. But with Runeterra, I found I was streaming between 8 and 12 hours a day, and then in my off time I was playing more Runeterra. So I became really, really addicted, and just I've fallen in love with the game, and I often ask me exactly why. it's a difficult question because there's many things that I really love about the game. It's hard to pinpoint to like one thing, right? I love, for example, the fact that it takes the initiative system from Artifact, which I think people really undermine, but I think was one of the best things a card game has ever implemented, especially transitioning from paper to virtual, right? I think in a virtual environment, having the ability to constantly alternate between you and your opponent doing their thing is very important for the fluidity of matches, right? And I love how Runeterra has implemented this. I love that they have instant speed level gameplay from the likes of Magic, but I also love the dynamic sense of it, and also casual friendly approach, so that it's not as intimidating towards more newcomers towards the genre, amongst others. So I just feel like this game has done so many things right, and it's also its very own beast, in which I just, like I said, it's hard to pinpoint, but Runeterra plays very differently to other card games, but it does so most of the time. Unfortunately, different does not mean good. Different a lot of times. There's a reason why certain card games follow a certain pattern, right? But Runeterra does things differently, and it does them in a very effective way. And I'm just honestly blown away by the core design. The ideas, like I'm really intrigued to see like how they came up with this thing, because I've like I said, I've been playing card games all my life. It's basically the only genre I play, and I just absolutely love this game. And I went from just like trying it out to just switching my content and focusing on it completely. Like just pull the 180, and there's still viewers of mine who are, upset, which I get, but I haven't felt this passionate about a card game since Duelist, and I played a lot of them, and I don't want to kind of like just let that go, So yeah, basically, I really like the game. TLDR.
Game is good. That's why I play it.
Yeah, I remember I was reading, it was right when the open beta was coming out, and you were talking about like, I just spent my entire day off playing Legends of Runeterra, and normally I don't play any card games, and like, I might have a problem.
Yeah, tell that to my girlfriend. She's not happy about it.
Yeah. Girlfriends hate it, but gamers love it. It's Legends of Runeterra.
Oh no! I don't think that should be the tagline.
Saucy, no, it definitely shouldn't. Which is why a lonely Poro said it, and no one associated with this show. Saucy, you know all about viewers not liking your new content. Can we get an exclamation point bros in chat?
Yeah. I was gonna say I had the exact same, because I came from Hearthstone, so I produced Hearthstone content, and I streamed that forever. And when I was kind of the same thing. I played the closed beta, the first preview patch. I'm like, that seems like a game. It seems okay. And then the second one, I played a bunch. I'm like, no, it's really fun. Like I'm really digging it. And then so we formed this podcast because I got just enthralled with it, and I had so many people just like out skewering me on a pike, like, oh, come back to Hearthstone. I'm like, I don't hate Hearthstone or anything. It's not about Hearthstone. It's how much more I love this game.
Yeah.
Like
it doesn't mean you hate the other game. Like that's what people there's this rather honestly like irrational sense of like need for loyalty for a video game that people seem to really try to force on you, especially if you're a content creator. That I can't really get behind. I don't dislike Magic the Gathering. I like I said, I like card games, and if I'm meeting up with some friends of mine or whatever and we play some Magic, I'm gonna have a great time. But the reality is like this game just provides so much more for me. Like the core set is, I see people saying that there's no variety, and that is just mind-blowing to me, because the core set in Runeterra is absolutely ridiculous. Like if you compare this to, for example, Artifact, which had that was no variance. Literally every deck was Axe and Legion or mono blue, and that was basically it. You had no freedom for deck building. It was all about the gameplay. In this game, one day I'm playing Draven with his swinging axes. The next day I'm playing Heimerdinger in the turrets, and the other day I'm just slowly killing my opponents with mushrooms with Teemo. It's just like I play so. There's so many different archetypes. There's so many different ways to mix cards, and for a core set, I have never seen anything even close to this.
Yeah. Nope.
And it blows my mind that people don't realize this, because it is amazing what we have with just the core set in Legends of Runeterra, and it just honestly makes me incredibly excited for like when they introduce expansions, new regions, champions. It's gonna be ridiculous.
Yeah. I today before the show played 3 different Fiora decks. Like all like I can't admit, and you know who the people that are saying that it's not that there's no variety. It's like, oh well, guys, it's just Mistwraith decks over and over again. I guess I quit if I can't beat Mistwraith. It's like, okay, man. Well, have you tried to play something else? Like, I'm so sick of playing Mistwraith mirrors. It's like, you don't have to play mirrors if you just don't play it.
It's just like, it's because I think one of the reasons why this is a thing is, because of the limitation with, the limits that there are with the economy system, right? Like people can't like build those sorts of decks super fast. So a lot of them, there's a heavy amount of net decking going around right now. And this revolves around 2 archetypes specifically, Mistwraiths and Elusives. And just because a lot of people are playing those decks, I'm not saying those decks are not the king of the meta, because, to a certain degree they are. I think we'll elaborate more on this later down the line, I assume. But basically that there's so many more options, and there's so many like tier 2 decks. There's a lot of them. Yeah. And they can beat the best decks. Yeah. Like and there's a heavy like I'm here climbing in Masters with a Teemo deck, and it works. It's not, it may not be, as consistent and efficient all the time as one of those, but it can beat them and any day. And people, I don't know, I've seen oppressive metagames in the past, and I just don't think, I don't know. I feel like there's so much variety, so many different decks you can make. I'm still exploring. Like there's still so many things I have to try out. Like I want to build decks around Karma. I have so many ideas around Karma, but it took me a long time to actually get that champion. So I just got her like yesterday. So I've been producing content for this game nonstop, like every day a different deck, and I still have like so many different ideas to try out. And it's just I've never like ran into this with any card game with the core set. Yeah. So I don't know, it's just brilliant.
Well, you bring up a good point, and something that we've talked on the show about a number of times, and is obviously one of the biggest things in Runeterra right now, and sort of the biggest just discussions to have, is the way that you get cards. And we talked about, I think in general, if nothing else, it is shifting the way that we as a community, as a card game community, perceive the grind. But we also mentioned that like the content creators that are out there building the wacky decks are negatively impacted by that, and that's of course like you are at the forefront of that. So talk a little bit about, and I know you're very vocal about this, but talk a little bit about your experiences with not being able to just have all the cards, as someone who is trying to build these crazy decks right off the bat as a content creator.
I mean, as a YouTuber and as somebody who game, like if I really enjoy that game, I want it to do well. So obviously I'm always very supportive of a good economy system that helps free-to-play players and all that. But this does not change the reality. The reality is I am not a free-to-play player. I am the embodiment of pay to win. If pay to win had arms and legs and a brain and heart, that's me. I am a whale, and I dump money into card games because that's basically it. Card games, food, and rent. That's where my money goes. And then, sometimes flowers for the missus, I guess.
I was going to say, it's Valentine's Day as of this recording, folks. We've already upset. But go on. Before you incriminate yourself more, go on.
But that's basically what I do, right? So obviously, if you put a limit for me, I'm not going to take it too well. And while my opinion has molded over time, because I was very vocal about this, but I believe it was around maybe a week ago, my view has changed a little bit, and I'm going to try to explain that briefly. Basically, like initially, when you simplify and you look at it, you're like, okay, if I can't, like, if I'm playing a card game and I actually can't just have all the cards immediately and build all sorts of different decks, that is just detrimental for a card game. That's just going to push a lot of people back. It had this impact on many streamers, for example, like Brian Kibler and others. They did not like this aspect, so I wasn't alone in this sentiment. But at the same time, the reality is this sort of limit that is applied is a requirement for the rest of the economy system to kind of like hold its own. And I think it is it's a bit of a price to pay, at least, from my perspective, for what is otherwise a brilliant system. And I just have to say, I don't like this aspect of it, and I will always be critical of it. But at the same time, this allows, like, I'm close to building the entire collection at this point, and I haven't completed all my expeditions runs every week, but I have obviously bought the wall cards every week and everything. But I've done so in a very smooth way. Like, the progression system feels very rewarding, and also if you just keep playing the game, you get the cards very fast. Like, there is no comparison between this game and like any other card game in the market. Like, you compare this to Hearthstone or to Magic the Gathering Arena, and it is just absolutely ridiculous. Like, Magic Arena is asking you to pay 10,000 golds to play Brawl.
Yeah.
And here you're literally getting the cards for free. You just have to play the game. And that's something that I'm personally very excited about, because I believe this game is going to challenge the status quo, and it's going to make history for the genre, and it's going to potentially attract a bunch of newcomers who have been otherwise pushed away from card games in general. Because we all have people like this in our inner social circles or our family, people who are just like, card games look cool, but they're expensive, and they don't get into it. We all know people like this because it's a very shared sentiment, especially people who have not like actually dwelled into a genre and like experienced it, and like all the joy that comes with it, and all the, because if you're one of the things I love about card games is the creativity, right? And it's a constant creative outlet that's it's just very fun to dwell into. And a lot of people just don't even give it a chance because of how expensive card games are. It's a well-known fact. Like, card games are expensive, and if you challenge that and you provide a free-to-play experience like this for the genre, it's massive. And I think the limit is in a way a price to pay.
Do you think so? This is obviously something that comes up a lot, because this is such a new economy, new system in card games. Do you think that Runeterra's success and it doing well could potentially challenge games like Hearthstone, MTGA to potentially more incentivize their players?
I believe if it's based on both the economy system and quality of game, I've said this before, and I'll eat my words if it's otherwise, but I believe Legends of Runeterra will be the biggest card game in the market. It'll defeat everything. It's definitely going to blow out MTG Arena, just because of the economy system alone, and I think the gameplay quality is outstanding. Every game in Legends of Runeterra, you can get bad draws. Card draw variance will always be a factor in card games. If you don't like that, play chess. Otherwise, but besides that, every game is a game. Every match is a well-fought match, and it feels like both players get to do something and dig in deep. And I just think from a core design perspective, because a lot of times many card games are limited by their core design, unfortunately. Like, there's so many things you can do to tweak the outer layers, but what are the pillars that define the game limit it. unfortunately, like for example, something like Gwent. But Runeterra just has everything has been done right, and it's also appealing. Like it also shares a lot of the good things about Hearthstone from the UI perspective and how dynamic it is. It's exciting to watch, and I believe it'll eventually. I believe it's going to be it'll take its time.
Yeah,
but I think eventually it'll be the number one card game.
Yeah,
I'm all about it.
I am as well, and I think the one thing that I think is subtle, and maybe it's just because I'm not playing. I'm not not that I'm not playing enough games. Maybe I'm not analyzing closely enough games. But one thing that and I and Saucy as well come from, back in the day, sort of a more competitive MTG and Hearthstone background. When we were playing, when I was testing for GPs and PTQs and whatnot for Magic in paper, one of the biggest things is, are you on the play or on the draw? It's still like that today. Being on the play, win percentage is drastically different than the draw, and
it's ridiculous.
And and again, maybe I'm just not analyzing it enough, but I have not noticed I don't even think. I mean, yes, attacking on evens versus attacking on odds is different depending on the deck that you're playing, but it's not even close, at least to the perception to me, whether I'm attacking on evens or attacking on odds because of the way the game is designed.
In all the games that I've had, I take your stance, by the way. Like, I'm not going to go ahead and claim, I know for a fact that it has no impact. I don't know. But from my perspective, out of all the countless games that I've had up to this point, I've never even thought about, I'm going first, I'm going second, and how that is going to impact them. I'm just like, okay, I just roll with it.
Right.
It's true what you said. Like, there's certain decks, especially like, for example, the obviously like the Miss Wraith deck with Shadow Owls, they want to be able to attack on turn 4. But because of the way the initiative system works, okay, I can play a 1-drop when I'm attacking second. I can't attack with it immediately, but if my opponent doesn't play a 1-drop themselves, I'm still going to be able to clean attack with that at the beginning of my turn, right? It has very little impact on anything, and it's a different. Yeah, Runeterra's just a different beast in that sense. Like it's the back and forth, attack priority system and the initiative system to just make it very, very. It's such a different game for something like Magic the Gathering, for example, and it's true. Magic the Gathering, that's one of the big. It's like, for example, in Gwent, it was the coin flip. In Gwent, it was a big issue, and in Magic is also a very big issue. Who goes going on the play? Like, you never, like, it always asks you, like, when you win the coin flip, it's like, oh, you want to go first or second? You never want to go second. Never.
Unless you're playing sealed deck at your pre-release and you have a very controlled deck. Anyone listening, just always go first. Even if it's close, just go first. Like, there are very few times I've ever wanted to go. Or if you're playing Legacy Dredge, right? You have to go
Manaless
second.
Dredge.
Manaless Dredge, where you have to go second so that you can discard the hand size on turn 1.
Yeah. But I mean, it is a big thing, though. Like, anyone who's come from games like, especially Magic the Gathering, like, think about if you're playing the mono red aggro, what your win percentage is going first versus second. Like, it's substantial. And in this game, like, I actually never even think about that unless I'm playing some like specific Zed aggro deck. I'm like, I want to attack on 3, but it's not even like a huge deal.
Right.
The disparity, like the official numbers, which do not pinpoint specific archetypes, just basically they encompass everything, dictate that there's in Magic the Gathering Arena a difference of, like, I believe 55% win rate if you're going first to 45 being our second.
Wow.
Which is ridiculous.
Wow.
It's insane. Yep.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. It's like that. Wow. I mean, if you're playing any tier 1 deck, being on the player draw is more important than what deck you pick.
Yeah, and it's like you say mono red, but it's also like it's just as important for the guy facing against mono red, right? Like, if you're playing a control deck, you got, especially if you're playing a control deck with counter spells. The difference between first or second is Massive, because all of a sudden my quenches, which just counter your spells for 2 mana, it forces you to pay two otherwise. I have that second land on the board before you do, which means I always have the priority, and I can just deny your game plan. But if you go first, then all of a sudden, like, that's where there's a lot of very key sideboarding decisions. If you're playing a deck with counter spells, you have to actually take some counter spells out when you're on the draw, because they just become way less efficient, especially against more fast-paced matchups, right? So yeah, definitely a big deal here that I haven't really seen. Like I said, I can't really assess it as a fact by any means,
right?
Because maybe somebody comes up with some data and then it turns out that there is some, you never know, right? But from my initial perspective, no impact whatsoever.
Well,
which is nice.
Exactly. Well, even like there's two separate things that are important. There's the actual empirical facts about what is like, is there actually a win rate disparity or not? That is important. Yes. The other important thing is, do players perceive that there is a win rate disparity? Because at the end of the day, people need to feel good about playing the game from a business side, from a growth of the game side. So even if there is a few percent disparity, like we're saying this anecdotally as people who play the game a lot, we don't feel it. So hopefully the people who definitely aren't looking into it aren't perceiving it that way.
There's a lot of like right now the complaints that are, for example, on Reddit and stuff, revolve around the metagame. Like, I haven't seen a single person complain about the, like, there's no, from what I've seen, there's no perception whatsoever. So for the time being, I think that's definitely not going to be any sort of issue, which is, like I said, it's very nice, because it's something like the issue between going first and second has, been a thing for card games forever. And it's a good thing to, like, not have to worry about.
It really speaks to the fact that they have, like, former, like, pro Magic players on the team. Like, I know Steve Rubin is a Pro Tour winner. Like, he's on the design team, and I know there's a lot of other folks on there that have just been in competitive, like, card games for a long time. And it's like, being able to actually go in and design a card game, not just for the sake of doing it, but like, hey, we've been competitive gamers for competitive card game players for a long time. What sucks about Magic? And like, there's a lot of great things about Magic. I think most people who've ever played Magic would say that there's a lot of great things, but also like missing your land drops and not actually playing a game really sucks. And then Hearthstone kind of figured that out a while ago, but like, I mean, even like the World of Warcraft TCG years ago figured that out. But it's like, man, it seems like they like went down the list, and they went even further down the list, and we're like, hey, what sucks about this? What sucks about this? What sucks about this? Okay, let's figure out a creative way to
and more so, like, more so than that even, is they managed to just pick the best aspects of every card game and mix them together as well. And not just mix them together randomly, but in a very cohesive design, like final design. Like I said, the initiative system from Artifact, the instant reactive sort of like interactive spell gameplay from Magic the Gathering. Like, but it's all at the same time, it's simplified, but simplified in a good way. Because even though, like, because that was one of my things that deterred my initial impression from the game, was that I was coming from Magic, and then I was also playing some Mythgard as well. Good game, really good game. And these games had complicated text, keywords, mechanics, all that. And then I saw the first day of like the first stage of the pre-beta. Oh, sorry, the closed beta, like preview stage. I made it by like day 2, right? So the first day I was watching some streams. My initial impression was like, oh, these cards are just like very simple. It's just like these effects are very simple. Everything in this game is very simple. It's too simple for me. This is just like another Hearthstone clone, whatever. But no, then it turns out the way the game plays out, the pieces themselves can seem simple at first glance, but as they all are mixed together and the way the game is designed, it's not. It's actually very deep. And
it's
neat.
And also remember that in the beginning of Hearthstone, that a 4/2 Divine Shield Charge was the best card in the format for a long time, and a 4/5 Vanilla for 4 was a staple card as well. So I give, you know, when people are like, if it's too simple for them right now, which I think we've talked about and explained that it's definitely not right now. But even if you somehow think that the base set right now is simple, give it just a little bit of time, because I think, and I have said it actually on the show as well, to echo what you said, Mogwai, is like, this is the most like diverse and not even necessarily complex, but just like, it has so many different flavors of what you can play. There's aggro, control, there's mid-range, there's combo decks if you count the Fiora and the Ezreal decks. There's so much, and there's things, and I gotta, and this will kind of shift us into our next topic as well. I've personally been inspired by the decks that you're posting, Mogwai, with like, hey, you've opened my eyes to Heimerdinger. Actually, I'll give credit where credit's due. Saucy originally in the preview patch with the Cataclysm deck opened my eyes to Heimerdinger. But this like after in beta, the mono Heimerdinger deck like was my favorite deck for a solid week. Like I played nothing but that, and now I've been playing the Heimerdinger Draven deck.
Oh yeah,
like
that's a good one.
You and Raptor have like kept have rebirthed my love of Noxus, because I wanted to, in the preview patches and before we actually got to play the game, I thought, oh man, we're just going to be playing nothing but 5/2s for 2. Everything's got haste. I only need to hit you a little bit, and they're just not good enough. So I like have not played that much Noxus. But man, I love that Heimerdinger Noxus deck. It's like a control.
I personally I love Noxus in general as a support region right now. I mix it like my favorite region is Piltover and Zon. So
it's a great region.
I play that region so much. Oh my god! And I love Noxus for like Noxus has a lot of support capabilities. Like not only like for example the Draven Heimerdinger deck, but also a great support region for the Ashe Frostbite midrange deck as well. It's just really solid. Draven is slowly but surely becoming one of my favorite champions, as he fits in so many different like the axes. It's just really neat. These 0 mana spells that you can, work around through deck building to make some get some nasty value out of them it's just neat, man. And obviously his voice lines are a nice bonus.
I was gonna say the voice lines is like, I don't play a whole lot of Dravens, but his voice lines every time you play it, like, because I've been playing a ton of just random Teemo decks, but every time there's a Draven and you play a Teemo, what the fuck is that? It kills me.
What the is that?
I heard like that's actually in my video today, like is my reaction to that for the first time, because I never saw that interaction. I was playing a Teemo and I just started laughing like crazy. Like I couldn't stop. It's like one of those moments in which like, okay, you laughed enough, you're live and all that. Okay, just you're gonna come off annoying, but I just couldn't.
Oh man,
can't stop. It was, and I also love with Fiora. Oh no, I should want.
Yeah. Oh no, I should want. Yeah, that's so good.
He's the best. He's the best.
He is. You are in for a treat the next time you see a Hecarim with a Braum in play. I won't spoil it, but you're in for a treat if you haven't heard that voice line interaction yet. It's pretty great.
It's my second favorite.
It's Draven. I love Draven from TFT actually, in set 1, but yeah, you are personally bringing Draven back to me in terms of my liking him in LOR after that one expedition I played where I literally went win-loss the whole way with my 3-power Draven right after he got nerfed.
This is so bad.
Yeah. Why doesn't he have that 4th power anymore? Because he was too good.
He was so good.
But
it was with that quick attack, it was pretty nutty, especially considering he could go up to 5 instantly with the axe. It was like, holy hell, he put so much pressure. Yeah. But it's great to see, like, it's one of those things, like, unlike, the Kalista nerf, Rip Kalista, he stayed, he's actually very, very viable, and he fits many different archetypes as well. But I personally love him in the Heimerdinger deck. I love mixing those two. It's just really neat.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things you can do with him, and it's fantastic. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, and we've talked about. I mean, that deck alone is really an example, because if you're looking around the internet at other places, or you're looking at tier lists or meta lists, or even the Mobalytics meta list, you're not gonna see a Heimerdinger Draven deck on that list anywhere, at least not yet.
No.
And a lot of the decks, I mean, actually, the Heimerdinger Ezreal deck has kind of fallen into favor now as like a tier 1, tier 2 deck. But you've really sort of focused, at least a lot of the content I've seen, on like non-meta or different decks. Is that just your style as a player to be that sort of deck brewer, or is it for content? What is your thought process behind not just jamming Mr. Wraiths to the top of the ladder?
Because well, I can't deny the fact that I do believe there's this little hipster edge you want to be living with inside of me, but at the end of the day, I just don't like mirror matches.
Mm-hmm.
I don't play card games for mirror matches, and I get very tired of playing a top tier meta deck. Like, I can do it for a day, but then I've had enough of that. The reason why I love card games is, like I mentioned earlier, it's just more of a creativity outlet for me, right? And I love brewing. I love a card game that can enable me. That's why I've loved Magic for a long time, because, for example, Magic has a lot of flaws that I've been very vocal about for, ever since I dedicated my content to it, right? Like the land system and a bunch of other things. But it is true that as a card game, it's remained, the king, at least in the paper side of things, because of all the different possibilities it enables you to have regarding deck building. And yeah, I love brewing. I love coming up with new tactics. I love the fact that, meta games, because people say, oh, I'm so tired about facing this and that, but I love the fact that meta games can become predictable and established, because that's kind of like a problem to solve in a way, right? And that's how I enjoy approaching the genre. Like, I like building different stuff and trying, unconventional strategies and using them to beat, the popular tactics. And that's basically it. Like, it's really simple. Like, obviously it does help my YouTube because I'm able to, showcase all sorts of things. But the thing is, like, if I wasn't doing like YouTube, I would still be doing what I'm doing. Like, I was still constantly, guys. I even though there are some decks that I've enjoyed so much that I do believe if I wasn't producing content, I would stick around with them for a bit more. I would play them for at least 1 week or two nonstop. Like, so there's a few decks that I have like that I just absolutely love, and I never get tired of playing. But it's fun. It's how I enjoy playing. And nothing against those who just like to spam ladder decks and all that, but I'll honestly never really understand that perspective, because that's how I see it.
Yeah. I'm the type of player that, like, I like to play competitive decks, but I just get bored playing the same deck over and over again, unless I'm practicing for a specific event, which doesn't happen for me because I don't play. Like, I used to go to GPs, Magic GPs, which are now called Magic Fests for some reason. No comment on that, on all those changes. But I would play the same deck over and over and over again, and would just grind games to learn the matchups and stuff for that. But I'm not a competitive player anymore. I play mostly for fun. Like, I want to grind the ladder, but like, I don't care at the end of the day if I'm #1 in the world. I'm not trying to win a tournament right now. So I just get bored. Like, I could play the Fiora deck over and over and over again, and I actually kind of might, because I really love that deck. But like, I could play Mr. Wraiths over and over again, but like, I just get bored and I want to play more stuff. So I'm glad I'm very thankful for your channel, because you're always giving me new ideas of what to play, which is awesome.
That's what I do. What I do. I've been getting a lot of like nice, supportive comments and like people who appreciate, the different decks and all that, and that's just very motivating because that just, I actually, I've been like I've been like working nonstop ever since Runeterra, and I've never once have I felt like, tired of it or like, saturated or anything. I just like right now, I want to finish my new Heimerdinger Lux deck that I've been working on, and then I want to build Karma with Freljord and Winter's Breath, like I just keep going, and it's just like, it's nice to see that people, share. I mean, at the same time, it's how I enjoy the game, and it's not hard for me to believe that others enjoy that as well. Like, like when you're telling me about, you getting bored of playing this, like that resonates with me tremendously, right? So I'm not in the least bit surprised at that perspective, and it's nice. It's cool.
Yeah, it was. I hit my maximum deck slots the other day because like I'll play like 4 or 5 games with it. I'm like, all right, next deck, and I like to just brew. I mean, I'm playing nothing but Pursuit of Perfection decks right now, so that's been my entire
next level. I just spit up my drink, by the way.
It's been I think I have 7 Pursuit of Perfection decks right now.
Jesus Christ!
You realize you don't have to play. The card says you just play.
I was a brewer.
you realize the card says that you just have to play that many different cards in a game, not play that many different versions of the deck.
See, I thought you had 20 different versions of this deck or something would work. Oh man,
that'd be cool if they made a card.
I got it to work once because I was playing Heimerdinger with Flash of Brilliance. It was actually like the Draven deck, I believe. Yeah, it was the Draven deck, and I got it. I actually got it to work. And I got like really cocky as I had my 30-30 overwhelm. I attacked and it got purified.
No.
Ouch.
But it was still satisfying as hell. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I would cry every time. That I had the was it not the They Who Endure? I had one of those. It was like a 24/24. They purified it as a 1/1.
Like, yeah, because the debuffs. Oh my god.
I was like, well, I guess I'm not winning this game. All right.
Oh damn, that hurts.
Yeah, that does. Man, that sucks.
I'm curious because you've come from Magic, a lot of MTG where the meta can get very stale, and the game is still in beta. I mean, it's not even out yet, which I have to keep reminding myself because it's so polished. But how do you feel the game's done so far, like correcting itself with the meta? Because it seems like there's been a flavor of the day. Like every single day you'll look on Twitter, Reddit, like, oh, today's Dawn Spiders, today's Mist Wraiths, today's Elusives. Like it's been rotating so much. How do you feel that's how it's been doing?
I mean, it's definitely been really fluid. For example, like when I remember, like a few days ago, I saw this version of Frostbite midrange with Ash, because I was working on a Vladimir deck, and I really believed Trifarian Assessor was a criminally underrated card. I think a lot of like top players, dismissed it really early on without even giving it a chance, and I was convinced that card had huge potential. So I started using it in a Vladimir shell, and then I started realizing, yeah, this is probably way more consistent in the deck with Omen Hawks and Avarus and Hearthguards, right? Like a standard. And then I saw this variant running around. I think it was Raptor who made it with just a Frostbite midrange list with Noxus and triple Trifarian Assessor. And I was like, yeah, I as soon as I saw that deck, I was like, this has to be really powerful. On paper, this looks amazing. I took it on the ladder and Masters, and I started destroying all the like Elusives and Mist Wraith decks with it. But then I started running into a bunch of mirror matches. A hell of a lot. And I was like, wow, like people picked up on this deck like really fast. Like 2 hours after I started playing it, all of a sudden everybody I'm running into is playing it as well. And it was the most direct experience with this like ever-changing metagame that I personally, ran into, right? It was in the moment. Like I felt it as People were just changing to it, and it's happened even though Shadow Isles with Misrates and Hecarim and elusive decks have proclaimed themselves as, you know, metagame kings, and there's little to dispute that. There are all these other decks that actually can take them on really well, and people like really like I felt like in other card games, as I rank up the ladder, I face less and less diversity. But in Masters rank in Legends of Runeterra, I am not the only one experimenting like crazy. Like I run into so many people with all these wacky deck ideas, and sometimes I just feel super peanut butter and jelly, you know, when I see one of these decks, and it's just like, oh man, why didn't I not come up with that? You know, there's all these neat ideas running around, and yeah, it's a lot of like flavor. I would say flavor of the day. And the thing is, once everybody has a full collection, eventually the metagame will be completely solved, and that can ultimately, like with any card game, lead to staleness. But this is where I believe Riot has a huge opportunity with, and that is, unlike Magic the Gathering, which I think its biggest potential downfall, at least Arena, is going to be its ties to paper.
Yep.
You guys are talking about how in Magic the Gathering, metagames can become solved and become stale quite quickly, which I think Wizards of the Coast are taking a very, very incorrect sort of approach at solving the problem, as they are trying to basically hide information. I've been told by sources, and I've seen in social media people talk about how they are speaking with you know, they're basically denying MTG Goldfish, Channel Fireball, etc., at like sharing decks from Grand Prix, etc., which is a very archaic way, in my opinion, of sort of like solving the issues. Like, no, just don't let people know what the pros are playing, and therefore the metagame won't be solved as quickly. It feels like a very, very desperate solution for what is inherently the big problem. The big problem is your game is tied to paper, and you can't change cards because you're printing cards. People are buying booster cards, and instead you choose to, you know, as a last resort, ban them. With Runeterra, Riot has a critical opportunity of approaching the game the same way they do apparently with League of Legends, and that is with regular balance patches. I'm not like, the key thing is how they execute these things, right? Like, what I don't want to see is them absolutely murdering archetypes. But if they do things in a subtle way, tone down some stats here, work on certain cards that need to be, you know, retweaked, or certain design choices that, you know, I don't personally agree with, like, for example, Commander Ladros. I think if they can do this regularly, this, like, despite what others may, like the naysayers may say, this will 100% keep the metagame super interesting, because it'll just make it so that there's never a prolonged state of staleness, as they are able to just, you know, elusives are too powerful, and there's some solid arguments, you know, not fueled by emotions, but by actual facts that state that elusives are indeed a bit over the top right now. Yeah, just tweak the stats, you know, tweak here and there, just tone them down a little bit. Don't obliterate them like you did with Callista, but, you know, take the Draven approach, you know, like tone it down and let other archetypes shine. Also buff other archetypes, like, you know, Vladimir Self-Harm could use some help, you know. I'm more of an advocate for buffing than the nerfing. It's all, like I said, it's all about how they execute this, but they have this golden opportunity of just, like, because they have no ties to anything, they can constantly fix their cards or tweak them, and therefore keep the metagame interesting. And I'm very, very excited, and also a bit afraid, or I guess the term would rather be anxious, as to see, you know, how they execute this. But I'm very much looking forward to it. I think if they do it right, it could mean a big deal for the longevity of the game.
Yeah, and that's one of the things they were talking about, you know, where they're saying, for balance changes and stuff, they don't want to nerf cards or balance them to where they're unplayable, so they're not giving kickbacks on wild card refunds or shard refunds, because they want cards to still be playable. And I really hope that to be true, especially if they are every couple weeks having some kind of balance patch. If something's out of control, something's crazy, just tweak it a little bit, buff some other stuff. I'd really love to see some responses to things by buffing other cards to see other archetypes shine from time to time.
Yeah,
sweet.
It's I mean, and I'm glad you mentioned the League of Legends and by extension almost the TFT philosophy too. Is like they're treating this obviously as a digital game. It's not a card game. It's a digital game that is using cards as the objects in the game. It is not a card game that has been ported over to digital, which is what Magic the Gathering really is just grandfathered into, unfortunately, unless they decide to sever that tie at some point, which
I doubt it.
It'd be hard. I have a hard time believing that would be possible, unfortunately. But they can, League of Legends and TFT have done a great job of like, oh, okay, well, let's do they do every 2 week, they do balance patches, and it's like, let's change this attack damage by 0.05. Let's change this attack speed by 0.1, something like that. Like little things that can change things drastically. I mean, even one attack off of Draven changed him from being like one of the most played things in preview patch 1 and 2 or in preview patch 1 to like he's on the fringe right now. I mean, that is probably because of people's perceptions, but the power level goes down. But they can do little things like that. We don't need to ban Oko. Like, what if MTG Arena had the ability to just make Oko Oko's +1 a -1 or something, or make him cost 4 mana? How much better do you think? Changes loyalty, or all of those things, honestly. But
they can't. They can't do that, and they won't even. Like, it's kind of like a taboo subject for them, right? Like the fact that they can't do, like, it's really, really limiting them. It's really gonna hurt Magic the Gathering Arena in the long run. And I think, honestly, I'm just very, very, very glad that Runeterra has no ties to paper whatsoever.
Right. Yeah,
that is such a huge weight you're lifting off your soldiers. Like, it's such a huge restraint that you don't have to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, for people who don't know Magic and haven't been playing for 20 years, like a lot of us have, they have this thing called the reserved list, where they won't even print cards. They won't even print reprints of certain cards because of some archaic thing that's been around for 20 plus years. Yep. And that's the bed they've made, and obviously I think they're successful in their way, and they have taken their paper first and digital second, and that's fine. But it is really great to know that, like, not only is Riot or is Legends of Runeterra a digital first game and digital only game on it, honestly, but that Riot is proficient in balancing digital games, not just card games. So we can speak the praises of Legends of Runeterra all day, but I want to move on a little bit, and let's talk a little bit about this Teemo deck you've been playing. I know you said you're climbing up in Masters, and I love Teemo, just to state the record here, but I have been skeptical of his playability and power level in Legends of Runeterra. So I'm
a believer,
massively intrigued at the prospect that I can play a Teemo deck and actually climb.
So here's the thing.
Every time it starts like that, I get a little worried.
No. It's actually like, I'm going to try and sell the car to you here, and tell you why Teemo. I think Teemo is the most misunderstood champion in Legends of Runeterra. When people try to build around Teemo, they focus too much on Teemo himself. They like the biggest. I quote unquote came up with this deck in the second version of or the second event of the preview event for the closed beta. But many others came up with this at the same time. Like it's a pretty obvious combo once you look at it. Obviously with the Kenku Wayfinder, right, pulling out 2 Teemos, and you build a heavy based Ionia deck with a bit of Piltover and Zon to try to, and then you have a bunch of spells like Denies, Twin Disciplines, Barriers, etc. And the strategy is basically, play Teemo, keep Teemo alive, have all these mushroom cards, and just duplicate Teemo and fill up your opponent's deck with a bazillion mushrooms, right? And obviously, the problem with this deck is, unlike the Ezreal combo deck, in which you're utilizing Ezreal as your late game finisher, so you don't have to actually draw him nor play him until the very end of the match, in which, with all the card draw that you have and everything, you're bound to find at least one copy of him. With the Teemo deck, you're trying to ride on a 1-drop, then you're trying to get that 1-drop as early as possible on the board, and you're also trying to keep it alive, while at the same time not dying to your opponent's early aggression, which is very difficult to, because right now you have the problem of either running into Mistwraith Shadow Isles and then then playing the Wraith Caller turn 4 and obliterating you. So even if you did find Teemo turn 1 and you protected him and everything, you just did not have you just did not have enough time. Or you're running into an elusive deck that just kind of like blocked your Teemo there. So many people reach the conclusion, Teemo sucks. Don't. I love the meme that I saw on the Reddit, by the way, like with the importance of wall cards and the kid just dropping the wall card to get Teemo. I oh my god,
wait, that was a meme? I thought that was just a picture of Saucy Mailman.
Yeah.
So having all this said, Teemo is the most misunderstood champion in the game because he should be treated as any other champion. And one of the things people don't really realize about Teemo is that he is an incredibly high pressure 1-drop. No matter what deck you have him in, doesn't matter. You play Teemo turn 1, your opponent is only thinking about one thing. I have to kill that little fucker now, immediately. I have to kill him as early as I possibly can. Yeah. Because if I let that stick on the board, eventually it's going to level up and it actually can kill me. Like it can fill up my deck with mushrooms. I have to eliminate it. So the idea that I had was to build, instead of just focusing only on Teemo, a mushroom archetype that can win without even drawing Teemo. Because if you want to build any sort of cohesive deck, you can't build it around a specific card and have it depend on that card only when this card is meant to be played in the early stages of the game. Right. This is why I'm not referencing the Ezreal deck, which is a different case because you're playing that later down the line, right? So I designed a deck mixing Piltover and Shadow Isles. The reason why I chose Shadow Isles is because the combination of Piltover and Shadow Isles gives you basically the best single target early game removal and at the same time the best card draw in core set. You have access to Glimpse Beyond and Progress Day, which combined give you insane amounts of card draw, and then you get to mix Mystic Shot and Vile Feast, which is the tits, because those two are just insane. Those two cards are absolutely insane, and you get to play a full set of both of them. So you have a deck with a plethora of very efficient tempo-based single target removal, great card draw, and a strategy that revolves around making the mushrooms work. But it doesn't only work around the mushrooms. It combines. This is where this is the biggest example that I use for my argument of like aggro control and mid-range not really being applicable terms to Runeterra. They're not really truly compatible, because this deck, I don't even know what to label it at. It's not control, it's not mid-range, it's just kind of like its thing. Stuff. And by not stuff. By not being tied to this concept of like I'm building a mid-range control deck, by just breaking free from that and actually just focusing on Runeterra as his own game, and I was able to build this deck as it is. Because what I'm basically doing is I'm filling my opponent's deck with mushrooms. The actual MVP of the deck is the Puffcap Peddler, by the way. I love that card. So I have a full set of that and Teemo. I have all these mushroom generation effects, obviously Chumpwumps and the Squirrel as well. But on top of that, I have direct damage spells such as Mystic Shot and Get Excited, which are my main ways to close out games. I have a one-off of Commander Ladros, and I have a full set of Plaza Guardian on the high end so that I can apply pressure with a bit of a surprise factor. As I play all these cheap mushroom spells, I get these Plaza Guardians to be able to apply it very efficiently later down the line, and I even have some warp map as a surprise way to sneak in damage with my Ladros and my Plaza Guardian in the late game, alongside a full set of Mark of the Isles, because that card is busted and is even more busted English with Teemo. Because a lot of times you draw Teemo in the late game, he's leveled up, you play him, you want to duplicate the mushroom, the opponent try to kill him, you give him Mark of the Isles, you hit them for 5 damage, you duplicate the amount of mushrooms, you get him at like 100 puff caps, and all of a sudden they take a few mushrooms, then they're down to 3, I get excited, and I kill them. That's how the deck works. It combines all these pieces together to take the opponent's health stat down, while at the same time having good removal to survive the early and mid stages of the game. And the deck flows really well in that sense. It's not just one aspect of it that's winning you games. It's all these intertwined and working together. So you have the peddlers, if they go unanswered, they get crazy mushroom value. Like you're playing all these cheap spells, and you're all of a sudden these guys generated like 40 mushrooms on their own, or more. So it's like, and I love the deck for that. It's actually like my current favorite deck to play. And if I wasn't a YouTuber, honestly, I would be playing this deck for 1 month nonstop and nothing else.
Over.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, that's how, in my opinion, you should build with Teemo. You should use him for what he is. He's not going to win you the game on his own. And 70% of the time, he's going to die as soon as he enters the board. But I'm also playing the what was his name? The 3-drop. I have him as a 2-of, the Scribbler of Sorrows or something like that.
Yep.
So, which works really well with Teemo, because early on, that's basically what he's always going to die. So
every time
I have a 3-drop that returns Teemo to my hand, and it's a 2/3. So I have all these tools, and that's it. Like, don't ride exclusively on one card and build your entire deck to protect it, but then half of your games you're not even going to draw it. Instead, draw a deck that just is cohesive entirely on its own, and it's flexible when it comes to draws and has different ways to win. And that's how I feel. Like I legit, like, I win a lot with this deck. Like, I'm telling you, like, and I've had messages from a lot of people telling me they reach masters with it, which is crazy. Amazing. So it's basically like, it's honestly like, when it comes to like all the decks that I've made, it's my most proud baby in a way. Like, because I'm very happy, because I spent like a long time, not only like building it but also optimizing it, and I just really like it. I find it very enjoyable to play. I'm not saying it's the best deck ever by any means, but it's just very fun and competitive.
Yeah, when I was looking at the list, I saw this because I'm a lover of Teemo. He's like he's near and dear to my heart. But when I looked at it, like I was saying that it's kind of like the P&Z Shadow Isles greatest hits, because like you just have some of the best cards from each. You're just like, this card's good, let's put it in the deck. Like Commander Ladros, he's not bad, let's just throw him in the deck. So like I love that about it. How you said, it's, you don't have to build around an archetype like you would in Magic or Hearthstone.
The idea behind Ladros, actually, it's we don't care about his last breath effect or anything like that. Ladros is because hitting the opponent for half their health makes it makes mushrooms deadly as hell.
True.
All of a sudden they go from like 12 to 6, and they're dead in a couple of turns to mushrooms alone. The biggest finisher in this deck, though, is Get Excited. Get Excited is how I finish like 90% of my games. I let the mushrooms just pour them down enough, and then I just get excited them. But Ladros is there for that reason. Ladros, like I whenever I play Ladros in that deck, it's just like I just want him to deal that damage, and then I don't care, what happens to him, or I'm not gonna play him again, because I'm doing other things at that point to try to win, right? But yeah, he's there for that. Sorry, I interrupted you there, but I just kind of like wanted to
it's
explain.
Good. I love it.
I think you have sold me on Teemo, by the way. And also
I did my job.
and also without even knowing, pretty much justified because I brought up last week. I made a point to, or not even last week on our last episode. I brought up to Saucy because you crafted 3 Teemos, and I go instantly, and I'm like, did you craft? Do you even have Fioras, which is a more sort of meta. More meta call right now, and I'm like, wow, yeah, there's Saucy for you. You crafted Teemos before Fioras, and now you're literally saying Teemo is good inherently, and you don't need to draw him, and you don't need to build a deck around him, which is exactly what you do with Fiora. So I just
it's just what he is. He's a 1-drop. Like what 1-drop in the game applies as much pressure as that little fucking thing? Like nothing.
True.
It's like when you see that thing, it's like kill it now.
It's gonna die.
And it's very neat that it applies the pressure that it does, right? For just 1 mana. And I don't know about you, but I love drawing Teemo with Progress Day in the late game and just playing him for 0 mana. Yep. I'm tapped out, and then I'm like, hey, look, I have a Teemo. You didn't see this coming, did you? I don't know. It's neat. I like
Teemo, I think the like correlation to a card of Magic that I think of Teemo is probably like Delver of Secrets, where it's like it's a 1-drop that you just have to kill or you're probably going to die.
Yeah.
My favorite thing in the world is when you play a Teemo and they vengeance it. You're like, you just spent so much mana to kill my 1-drop. Best feeling in the world. Love it.
Yeah. That's well, I mean, I guess I'm spending my next 3 champion wildcards on Teemo now. It's decided. Yep. It is decided.
It must happen.
It must happen. We are quickly we're quickly running out of time, so let's jump to a couple of listener questions here. Let's maybe just each pick one that we want to go for, and or maybe we'll do 1 or 2, and we'll end out on that. I will start
the bottom one.
What's that?
The bottom one that we just got in?
Yeah, let's start with the bottom one here. So this one is from Sputnik in the chat. Shout outs to them. I know they're still around, so shout outs for asking this one. So Mogwai, don't need to go too deep into it, but what are you expecting, or maybe what do you want to see from the balance change that's happening next week?
I could be pretty brief about this. What I expect and what I would like to see, mainly some hits to Shadow Isles and elusives. I think, there's always the argument like, well, just learn to play against them. But the reality is they are a bit over. Like, I love Shadow Isles as a faction, by the way, as a region. I think Shadow Isles has a lot of very interesting archetypes within it. And I think it's very well designed, but it is a little bit too efficient in certain aspects. And I want, for example, I want Mistwraith to be hit. I think that card is starting to see a lot of play outside of the Mistwraith sort of like synergy. Anyways, I think that card has too much value, and I would like to see it tweaked. I also think Commander Ladros should be changed in some way or another, maybe like the rounding up and down. I just don't like how it is like the one card in the game that just really punishes any sort of like late game strategy and just absolutely says no to it, really hindering any sort of like viable control game plan against Shadow Isles as a region. So I would like them to do something about that. Also expect, barring the Mistwraith, I think Glimpse Beyond is one of the main reasons why Shadow Isles is as powerful as it is, and I would like it to be changed to 3 mana. I think that would be fair. And I could totally. I think Rasa is completely fine as a 5/5. It wouldn't lose any viability whatsoever. And yeah, regarding Shadow Isles, those are the major changes. I think despite people disagreeing with this potentially, I think Hecarim is actually fine, even though he's very powerful. I think champions should also be powerful.
Yeah.
And when it comes to elusives, I think a tweak of stats as well. I think Navary Conspirator is one of the biggest offenses, and I think what was intended to be a downside effect is actually a very, very it's too efficient, and I think elusives are just in general too overstated. I think elusives should require more heavy buff synergy, and actually force you to really dive into that instead of just slapping them in so many different decks. So I would definitely just like the overall. I wouldn't mind them being a bit more aggressive with elusives, to be completely honest, because I think, like I said, I think they should it's kind of like when you build a mushroom deck or whatever. Like you need to like really invest into synergies and certain things, and I just don't feel there's enough of that going on with deck building with elusive. So those are mainly the changes that I would expect and or at least appreciate. I think honestly everything else is fine, and I'm looking forward to it. Honestly, I really am excited for, because I know I'm pretty certain they're going to be tackling those two things in some shape or form.
Definitely a lot of I think commonly held views there for sure. That is good. Thank you for that. Okay, so in that vein, I guess this is kind of in the similar vein of what you just talked about with Shadow Isles. Slightly. This one's from Zuljack, and they ask, does Shadow Isles need to be retuned? So not even just nerfed, but retuned. And the reason they ask this, is, do other regions need some sort of removal that's not unit based, such as Demacia? Because like Shadow Isles is really, I mean, there's some in P&Z with damage, a little bit in Noxus, but is there a need to spread out sort of the removal diversity across other regions?
I mean, what removal does Shadow Isles effectively have that other regions don't? Think about it. Yeah, they have Ruination, but it's not like Ruination is inherently a problem.
Right.
It's really good against Frostbite midrange, but they have Black Spear, which can be easy to proc, but I think Mystic Shot is inherently better. They have like what other? I just don't. I think the last thing we need is for Shadow Isles to be retuned, because I think Shadow Isles is actually one of the better designed regions. Power level is a different argument entirely.
Right.
From a design perspective, Shadow Isles is just flooded with flavor. It is absolutely like I personally am a big fan of the self-sacrifice sort of tactics. I think Curse Keeper, Undying, Chronicler of Ruin is a really cool card. And Shadow Isles just has so many cool, like, I love Phantom Prankster as well. I like Hecarim as a champion. I think, I hate Commander Ladros from a design perspective, but that's the only card that I really dislike. I think every other card can just be tweaked a little bit with numbers here and there, but I think the overall thematic in Shadow Isles is fantastic, and I actually want them to bring back old Callista, maybe to check out her power level, but I think she was one of the coolest champions by far in Runeterra, and what they did to her was uncalled for, in my opinion, just for the sake of it being too complex. That's like the biggest crime committed by the Balance team, in my opinion, in Runeterra, is what they did to Callista. And I think I completely disagree with that. I think Shadow Isles is excellent, and it's just a matter of power level and maybe upping other stuff and toning them down, but let them be as they are, because they're great.
Yeah, a lot of good points.
I totally agree. And I think I'm glad that you mentioned it, because I think one of the most powerful cards in the entire game is Glimpse. It's just like, it's such good card draw for 2 mana. And I think that's one of the cards that like allows so many archetypes to just work, especially because it like stops so many effects. Like they go to grasp your guy. All right, let me just glimpse it. And now you don't get the healing as well. And like, it enables so many different things, and I think that's one card that people sleep on, as it being so powerful. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, because it's just not. It's a very average card in Magic. So like that exact effect exists in Magic, and it's always just average. But it's so interesting on being able to essentially get more value out of a creature because you soaked damage into it, because damage sticks around in this game, and also you have full mana every turn, so drawing extra cards is so good, and you can also counter their cards with it. There's just so many things that are good about it, and it's definitely a very versatile card. But we are just about out of time here. Saucy, is there any last questions that you want to get while we have Mogwai on, whether a listener question or just something that you want to ask? Oh, I do want to, while you're thinking about that, Saucy, I do want to bring up one interesting thing that I thought this might embarrass Saucy, but I'm still gonna say it.
Not
I'm
a
still gonna
chance.
say it. So this is a true story, Mogwai. When Saucy and I did, we did probably 2 or 3 episodes together, and I was asking him, "Oh, hey, who would you want to have on the show?" Because like I'll ask anyone to be on the show. First person he says is Mogwai. I want Mogwai on the show. I'm not even kidding. This is an actual true story. I go, all right, I'll see if I can get him. And here you are. So you were the actual first choice from Saucy. Just want to.
No, I mean, like, in general, like the reception from the community has been just so great, and I'm just excited. Like I was very excited to do, because with Magic, like I spent a year like building up my channel and everything, but I didn't really connect with the community too much, to be honest. But I really, because I did connect with, like, for example, when I was in Gwent, that was like one of the biggest things for me. Like the community in Gwent was amazing, and I kind of missed that a little bit, being a part of stuff like this. And I'm so passionate about this game that I really am looking forward to meeting all sorts of folks who share that passion. So yeah, I as soon as I saw you guys, like, especially, like, honestly, I love the name, like, Runeterrable. I think it's
it is.
I definitely was looking forward to being here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and we're super happy to have you as well. And I mean, this was a great episode, man. Really appreciate it. Before we go here, Mogwai, the floor is yours to sell out, shout out, tell people where they can find you, YouTube, Twitch, all that good stuff. Use this as your platform. Get more people.
Well, basically, I'm that guy with a bag who's not Brazilian. And I play card games. I have a YouTube channel. It is called Mega Mogwai. So if you want to check that out, I do upload videos there daily. And I try to build new decks every day. I also stream 5 days a week at twitch.tv/megamogwai, and with an a 0 instead of an O, because I made my account initially and then I forgot the password and I lost it. So I had to.
Classic.
So
classic.
So I had to make a new one. And and basically, I mean, if you're into the game, then you can check that out. There's other fantastic content creators out there, though. So hopefully we get some more and more variety as time passes. And that's all I got to say. Thank you for having me. And yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
And also, last thing, you did just recently hit 100,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Yes, I did.
Congrats on that.
Yeah, thank you very much. Big deal. Big deal for me.
It's just a big deal.
It's just a big deal in general.
I've been doing YouTube for a while, and that was my first, big goal. And it's like I said, I've received tremendous support from Runeterra. Like I've been getting like 1,000 subscribers a day on YouTube, which is pretty ridiculous. Awesome. So it's very nice to see. Like what's more so than the growth of my channel or anything, it's just very reassuring to see that there's so many people interested in the game. Like, because I honestly that was my biggest fear, like, because I absolutely love everything about this game, and I was just so afraid of like people not sharing that passion and not just feeling the same way towards it, and the game not having an audience. It would really suck, honestly, for me. And because I love it so much, and I feel really lucky now being able to actually like focus on uploading videos every day about it and streaming it, because I just never get tired of it. And it's a nice time to be alive as a card game enthusiast. So it's good stuff.
Yep, it really is. And Runeterra is it's been great for everyone that we've talked to, at least, which is awesome. But that is going to bring us to the end here. Saucy, where can people find you on the internet when you're not here on the podcast?
Yeah, I'm just Saucy Mailman, all one word everywhere. YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, all that places. I'm not necessarily 100,000 subscribers. I'm a few 100,000 less than that, but I'm getting there.
we all start somewhere.
No, I've been mostly playing a lot of Elnuck decks, Pursuit of Perfection. So if you like going way off the deep end on memes, that's kind of where I've been. So yeah, I'm actually probably going to be streaming as soon as we stop this, because it's that time. But yeah, that's what I do. Saucy Mailman all over the places.
Oh yeah, and you can find me on the Discord, discord.me/Runeterrable Radio. Make sure you join. That's where you can find all of the awesome content. You'll be able to see the link in all of this very episode, and you'll also know in advance when we're having awesome guests like Mogwai on the show. But before we go, I just want to thank you again, Mogwai, for coming on. Really appreciate it. Keep up the awesome content, because I am always going to be looking for new decks to play. So thank you.
Just steal all my decks. It's good.
Whoa. If I change one card, it's not stealing.
But I added one extra Vile Feast.
Yes, I'm playing 4 Vile Feasts in my deck. Yes, I've got the innovation. Yeah, true though. Actually true. But that is going to be it, guys. Thank you everyone for listening and watching. Again, make sure you're going to the Discord, discord.me/Runeterrable Radio. You can find all of the links to everything that we do there, and we will have everything that you could ever want there, and we have a great community. So make sure you check it out. But that's going to be it for this episode. Thank you again to Mogwai. So for Mogwai, for Saucy Mailman, I'm Blevins, and we will see you guys next week. Talk about more Runeterra.